All the great members of Congress who are joining us today, the clean energy leaders in the Congress. We're here because, once again, the Trump administration is making EPA stand for every polluter's ally. And I'm proud to stand alongside my colleagues in the House and Senate, alongside climate leaders Abigail Dillon, President of Earth Justice, Mark Magana, CEO of Green Latinos, to oppose any and all efforts to eliminate EPA's authority and mandate to regulate dangerous greenhouse gases based on the threat they pose to the public, also known as the endangerment finding. And I am right now, going to introduce the host of this event, the great Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from the state of Rhode Island.
I tell you, having the crowd warmed up by Eddie Markey is a rare and special thing. Thank you, Eddie. I've done a fair amount of climate battle in my time, but nobody's been a longer and more ardent and on the cusp of hugely successful climate warrior than this gentleman right here, all the way back to Waxman Markey. If he'd been in the Senate, I doubt we would have failed to get that through. There is an insect. It's a kind of wasp. And it injects its larvae into another unfortunate bug. And the larvae inside the other bug take over the command and control systems of the other bug. And they steer the other bug around like you or I might steer the car around. That's the analogy you need to think of when you're thinking of the Trump EPA. The Trump EPA is the bug, and the fossil fuel larvae are in there driving all of its decisions. Why do they get away with this? They get away with this because since Citizens United, the fossil fuel industry has essentially been the full dark money funding station for Republicans in Congress. They could not succeed. They would not have the money if it weren't for the massive fossil fuel climate denial fraud and political obstruction apparatus. They have become as dependent on that apparatus as one of those old deep sea divers with the big helmet is on the air hose that goes to the surface. All fossil fuel has to do is pinch that money hose just a little, and the divers all dance to whatever jig they're told by the other folks at the end of the dark money pipe. So that is where we are. That is what we are up against. That is why we have to be ready to do battle, not only to protect our environment, but to rid our political environment of the extensive lies and corruption that the fossil fuel industry has launched into American democracy. So thank you all for being here to take on that fight. It is wonderful to be with you. And to you, Eddie.
If I can get up one more time.
Go, Eddie.
Briefly, thank you so much. Much appreciated. And by the way, up in New England, we Irish Catholics, when we arrived, we were greeted by wasps. And those wasps instilled in us a love of the environment. And we are wasps from the other side of this battle because of Sheldon Whitehouse and his great tradition. So we're here in order to oppose all efforts to eliminate EPA's authority and mandate to regulate greenhouse gases through the endangerment finding. The fight is personal. My home state of Massachusetts has long been a leader. They are the state that brought Massachusetts versus EPA, which created the endangerment finding as the law of our land. And we must make sure that we fight for this actual and imminent threat to greenhouse gases being posed to people everywhere, being remediated. And that is why today, leading the Massachusetts delegation to write to Lee Zeldin, demanding he reverse the proposed repeal of the endangerment finding because of how this short-sighted decision will hurt Massachusetts constituents and our nation, both now and far into the future. The EPA couldn't disapprove and deny the connection between greenhouse gases and climate change then, and they can't now. And even though we have the facts on our side, Trump's EPA is pushing its own fictions. And if their attacks on climate science weren't enough, by eliminating the endangerment finding, the Trump administration is also trying to wipe out the clean car standards. And if they eliminate our clean car rules, the Trump administration will kill jobs, cause families to shell out more for gasoline, and hurt our kids with asthma attacks. Lee Zeldin is just like the mayor in Jaws. He's trying to tell the American people it's all clear to get back in the water. Nothing to see here, folks. No danger to him from climate change. No laws that require him to fight pollution. No court precedent that demands the agency he leads must keep us safe. That's Zeldin's argument. But in the 16 years since the Massachusetts versus EPA endangerment finding was first established, we know that people are not safe. There is blood in the water and more sharks, fossil fuel sharks, than ever. This attack on the endangerment finding is a clear and present danger to the public. We are facing unprecedented attacks on our health and environment. These attacks need to be met with an unprecedented response. We need a system change, not climate change. And I am going to fight with all of my colleagues to protect our laws, our science, our health, our safety, especially for the young leaders who are here today, showing us what the future can look like. Mark Twain said that patriotism is supporting your country all the time, but your government only when it deserves it. These kids deserve better than what this dangerous administration is doing to them and to their future. We all deserve better, and together we won't stop demanding better from them until Trump, Zeldin, and his cabinet cartel are removed from office. So we thank all of you for being here. I thank my colleagues for all of your leadership. And now I turn it over to Senator Padilla from California. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you, Senator Markey, for your long-standing leadership on these issues. California's learned a lot from Massachusetts, and we're trying to push the envelope as well. For those of you who are tracking closely, big weekend in the California legislature, big steps forward on our climate change and clean energy economy agenda. Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for having me. Thank you for taking time to be here so that collectively we send a strong message to our Republican colleagues and to the Trump administration, because it is not lost on us what these last few months have meant. We've seen the Trump administration attack California's clean vehicle standards, and not only attack the standards, but roll back our authority to clean the air for the people of California. We've seen an administration repeal historic tax credits for electric vehicles that are increasingly popular, not only because of their zero emissions, but their reliability and convenience. We've seen an administration even tear up the widely accepted scientific consensus that greenhouse gases are accelerating climate change. They're trying to deny the science, and they're trying to hide the science, all to please their billionaire donors. Well, even if Donald Trump and his allies in Congress can think they can afford to ignore the science, we know that Americans all across the country cannot and will not. To the Trump administration, if you truly believe in the power, if you truly don't believe in the power of cleaner vehicle standards, then yes, think about these kids. Because these kids remind me of what life was like when I was their age. Growing up in Los Angeles in the 70s and 80s, where it was not uncommon to not be allowed to play outside during the day because the air quality was so bad. Being sent home from school early because the air quality was so bad. Feeling that burning sensation in your eyes or in your throat because air quality was so bad. President Trump and Republicans in Congress, if you're still not convinced that fossil fuels are endangering the lives of Americans today, not just in California, but across the country, let me just point to two examples that are close to home. The catastrophic wildfires in Los Angeles earlier this year. January began, not let me emphasize, this wasn't the middle of a hot, dry summer. This was the month of January when the communities of the Palisades, Altadena, Pasadena, Sierra Madre, and others were devastated by historic fires. Talk to the families who lost everything and are still waiting and struggling to rebuild. The science has long been settled. It's their politics, their economic agenda that is driving this bad policy. For all the pain that Californians felt from pollution and from climate change, we've actually also seen a lot of the promise of our innovation. California's clean energy innovation. The first tailpipe emission standards for passenger vehicles in the nation that has been improved upon and improved upon and improved upon over the years. Between the standards and investment in R&D, we see greener trains and trucks that keep goods moving and California connected. Not just connected, but driving our regional and national economy. And ambitious goals to transition to an electric vehicle and renewable energy future. And let me address their hypocrisy dead on. They say, well, we can't do this because it's bad for the economy. Clean energy and economic growth actually go hand in hand. California is led on policy and has grown to be the fourth largest economy in the world. As the rest of the nation is struggling to create jobs, California is leading the job creation engine. We can and must do both. But after repeated attacks from this administration, I know that we remain committed. They cannot harm our resolve. And together we will continue to fight back because we refuse to allow corporations' bottom lines to speak louder than our kids and our neighbors. We refuse to let industry profits rise while communities burn down. And we'll keep speaking out, we'll keep standing up to what we know is wrong because too many lives and future generations depend on it. Thank you so very much. Nice time.
Good to see you. Lloyd Doggett from Texas. Few actions of this horrendous Trump administration do more to endanger the well-being of the American people than the attempt to terminate the endangerment finding. Yet again, Republicans are ignoring science. The endangerment finding in 2009, even more true today, is based on scientific fact, not alternative facts, which are really not facts at all. Trump has become the climate denier in chief. He acts like what you don't know won't hurt you. But you don't need to be a sailor in Massachusetts or anywhere else to understand that turning off the lighthouse doesn't move the rocks. While much of my native state of Texas is full of fossil fuels and fossilized thinking, I'm glad that Texas leads the nation in wind power, in solar installations. I'm pleased that most of my Democratic colleagues from Texas have joined me in calling for the EPA to maintain the endangerment finding, our bedrock finding that climate change endangers human health. The climate crisis is certainly not a remote threat. It's at our doorstep. Extreme heat is already the #1 weather-related killer in America. Summers in Texas now stretch from April to November. As the heat continues to climb, I live in a state that will begin to look more and more like the Sonoran Desert. Deadly storms like the Central Texas floods that recently took 130 lives over July 4th, and wildfires much like those in California are becoming more common and increasingly dangerous. Home insurance premiums are causing some people to have to question whether they can live where they currently reside. We've seen a skyrocketing of disaster risk. And tropical diseases that we never experienced before in Texas, have moved north and pose danger to the lives and livelihoods of my neighbors. To mitigate the climate crisis, we must do more to cut emissions, and undoing the endangerment finding would remove the EPA's ability to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. The danger of an ever hotter planet is real. The endangerment finding is essential to our meeting this challenge. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague from California, Mike Levin. Mike.
Well, like Senator Padilla, I grew up in Southern California in the 1980s, and I actually want to direct my comments to you guys back here. So when I was your age, we had smog alerts all the time that would keep us inside. Teachers would say, you're not allowed to go out to play. We have to stay inside today because the air quality is bad because of the particulate matter or the ozone or whatever it may be. I also remember running around the track. I went to high school near downtown Los Angeles, and you'd run one lap around the track and your lungs would burn from all the stuff in the air. But California got very aggressive, we got very smart, and we worked with our federal partners. We worked with the EPA, and we were able to do a tremendous amount. We were able to reduce ozone pollution by around 70%, and at the same time, California grew its economy 300%. So the notion that you can't clean up the environment and grow the economy at the same time is just flat out false. We've done it in California, the fourth largest economy in the world. At the same time, what I see today from Lee Zeldin, somebody that I know, I've known Lee Zeldin, we served together here in Congress. What I see today really doesn't resemble the Lee Zeldin that served in Congress, to be honest with you. I see an EPA that has lost its way. The EPA was created, let's not forget, when Richard Nixon was president. The Clean Air Act had overwhelming bipartisan consensus. Just a handful of people voted against. Same with the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, all the bedrock environmental laws that growing up as a new environmental attorney, I have to admit to you, I thought would be around for the rest of my life. I never expected that we would see the entire framework of environmental law challenged all at once. And what we're seeing right now through the actions of the EPA threatens the future health of our young people. When you are my age and when you have kids and grandkids of your own, you want clean air to breathe, you want clean water to drink. Just the same, I think it endangers the future of our economy. Because what is going to happen is we're going to cede our global leadership to China and other countries on the clean energy jobs of the future and the clean transportation jobs of the future. And on top of it all, it's going to mean higher energy prices for consumers because clean energy is cheap energy and cheap energy is clean energy. That's why Sean and I are going to be rolling out a bill called the Cheap Energy Act, all about renewables and transmission and all the other things that we think will lead to a better and cleaner future. So I would just say this. I led a letter with virtually the entire California delegation, House and Senate, just as Ed did in Massachusetts and Lloyd tried to do in Texas. We got everybody signed up in California to say to Administrator Zeldin, don't do this. Californians don't want to see this happen. I represent so many Republicans that don't want to see the smog alerts come back, don't want to see the polluted air come back. We've got to stand up for clean air. We've got to stand up for a strong economy, and we've got to lead the future. And so with that, I just encourage the young people, stay involved. Stay involved. And I'm so grateful that you're all here. I'm grateful to all the organizations that are here. And with that, I want to introduce my dear friend, Shelley Pingree, to come on up. Thank you, Shelley.
Well, thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you, Mike, and to everyone else who's here today. This is really a great gathering. We are truly in the fight of our lives, and the endangerment finding and the attempts that this administration is making is just one of the huge components of this fight. I, too, am here for my children and my grandchildren, all 7 of them, and I just want to thank the young people who are here today. You really have one of the harder jobs, holding the signs, because that's not easy. So thank you. That shows your level of commitment to all of this. And we just know how important it is we do this work for the future and how much we've already lost with this administration. I, too, have a quick Lee Zeldin story. I'm the ranking member on the Interior Environment Subcommittee, so we fund the EPA. We've watched the devastation of this administration just in the 9 months or 8 months, whatever it's been, seems like 27 years, and watched them, take away the staff, take away the research there, and now in their most recent bills really destroy it, and attempting to roll back these rules that have been the backbone of how we regulate the environment is truly devastating. I was in a hearing, Lee Zeldin came, And I said, I remember when you were in Congress, we were actually talking about PFAS. And I said, we worked on some issues together around PFAS, and now you guys seem to be reversing many of your thoughts. And he said, well, then I represented constituents. Now I work for this administration. And honestly, it can't really tell you anymore what he's doing, what they're doing in dismantling this authority, this vital authority that the EPA has to limit pollution. And we've heard so many stories already about cars, power plants, oil and gas operations, who they're truly working for now, and how much this will be undoing the power that we've had for so many years. I just want to talk briefly about what it means in my state. I'm lucky enough to represent the state of Maine, where we care deeply about the environment, but it's also our livelihood. I hope you all had a chance to be tourists there this summer, because you know what a beautiful, wonderful place it is. But we're also an economy that's based on our natural resource-based industries, particularly fishing, farming, and forestry. Now, in Maine, we had severe impacts from 2 storms in 2023 that really devastated our coast like we had never seen before. In my own small town, the local boatyard had water, way above your hip, and like things people had never seen before from the storm surge and the extreme weather. We lost 60% of our working waterfront in our state, and it did tens of millions of dollars of damage. These are little piers that the fishermen go to every day, that have been in their family for years, that they're counting on for their livelihood. The Gulf of Maine is warming faster than 90% of the rest of the oceans in the world, and that's had a huge impact already on our fishermen. Those warming waters mean that the lobsters are moving north. Now, we want to make sure when you get there, we still have lobsters, but they don't care. The lobsters are going to go where the colder water grows. We've already lost our shrimp fishery, and we're seeing unusual species coming in there, and the fishermen report back to me all the time about something they catch in their trap or something that they're seeing in the water that was never there before. Of course, the health impact of this warmer weather. If you're there in the summer, one of the first things people will tell you as a tourist is you got to check for ticks. There are ticks everywhere, and we never used to have ticks in 2010 or earlier in this century. Now we have Lyme's disease everywhere, but we've had a 14% increase in anaplasmosis, which is one of the more deadly diseases you can get from ticks. And every mom knows to make sure that their kids are being checked for ticks every single day. The warming temperatures, of course, also mean increased asthma. We have more wildfires and the wildfire smoke, ground level ozone. And our fishermen and farmers and foresters are experiencing this every day. I visited a small farm in my district on Monday morning before I came down, and we were talking about the fact that we had, about 6 weeks of rain in the early spring. That meant the pollinators couldn't set the fruit. There meant all kinds of impacts there. And then we've been in a drought situation since July, which has been devastating for many of our farmers who don't traditionally have irrigation. Our foresters are worrying about unprecedented species coming in of bugs and pests that we've never seen before, and the trees themselves are suffering from the drought. So it impacts our lives every single day. It's impacting our economy and our livelihood. We have the tools to do this. We've been doing great work, and all of you have been working alongside us to fight climate change and to fight against this extreme weather and so many other impacts, and now that's about to be taken away from us. I just want to say I'm proud to lead, along with SEEK, this letter that goes to the EPA expressing our extreme disgust at what they're doing, and we have 140 current signers. So we're getting great sign up on this. I know my colleagues are worried about this, and we're going to continue to fight with all of you. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you today, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Sean Caston from Illinois, and look forward to signing on to your new bill. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shelley. Thanks to all my colleagues who are here. So I want to start by badly mangling Julius Caesar's eulogy. I am here to praise Republicans in Washington, not to bury them. I'm here to praise Richard Nixon for creating the EPA, for creating the Clean Air Act. I'm here to praise Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, who under their leadership recognized that global pollution demands global solutions, and that if we are going to put consumers first, we need to use markets to make sure that we identify the cheapest ways to lower those global pollution, because that was how they created the Montreal Protocol under the leadership of Bill Ruckelshaus and Bill Riley, EPA administrators in successive Republican administrations. That program was so successful, it reduced pollution so quickly, so cheaply, that they copied it domestically to create the acid rain trading program. If you had maple syrup on your pancakes this morning, you can thank a Republican administration for shutting down the sulfur emissions from Midwestern coal plants so that those sugar maple trees are still alive. I regret that that ideology has completely left the Republican Party, but I'm grateful to their leadership for making this moment happen, because the law is unambiguously clear. The Republican-created Clean Air Act says that the EPA has an affirmative obligation to regulate pollutants that affect human health and welfare. The Supreme Court is unambiguously clear in Mass versus EPA that CO2 is a pollutant that adversely affects health and human welfare. The science, going back to 1896 and Svante Arrhenius, if you haven't heard of that dude, I will go back to the 1970s and refer to ExxonMobil scientists. That science is unambiguously clear that when you burp CO2 into the atmosphere, the temperature goes up, the fires go up, the warming goes up, the seawaters go up. All of that is unambiguously clear. Now, what we have to spell out, I think, in simple terms, because some of the current crop of Republicans will slow in the uptake, is that Lee Zeldin is not the talking head of the EPA. Lee Zeldin is not the Trump toady of the EPA. Lee Zeldin is not the bomb thrower of the EPA. Lee Zeldin is the administrator of the EPA. And his obligation is to administer the laws as passed by Congress and as affirmed by the Supreme Court of the United States. If he doesn't do that, he's breaking the law, he's breaking his oath, and he is putting every one of us in jeopardy. And so the question you have to ask is, why is he opposed to this? And I would submit to you that this has nothing to do with clean energy and everything to do with cheap energy. If you can't swim, the second to last thing you want to do is be in the deep end of the pool. The other thing you don't want is more people who can compete with you in the pool. And this is a math problem. Half the population is below average. When you put mediocre people in charge, they don't want to have competition because that might expose their deficiencies, wouldn't it? When you put mediocre people in charge of businesses, well, they don't want to have competition because markets are really tough if you sell a second-rate product that nobody wants. And when I talk about second-rate products that nobody wants, coal demand has collapsed 50% in the United States over the last decade. Oil use is completely flat in spite of rising energy demand, because it turns out that people actually prefer not to pay for energy. They prefer solar panels, they prefer wind turbines, they prefer electric vehicles, and competition is hard if you're a mediocre dude. And so Lee Zeldin is advocating for his own mediocrity, for all the mediocrity that surrounds him in the White House, for all these people who are petrified of DEI, because that puts more competitive people in the pool, right? And the consequence of all this, yes, is going to be that the earth gets hotter. Yes, is going to be that we jeopardize the future for all these kids. It also, the other consequence of this is that your energy prices go up, that you lose access to the things you want. You lose access to the things that Ronald Reagan promised you. As Elijah Cummings said, we are better than this. I'm grateful for all you being here to stand up for it. And I hope before I'm done with this job, it is not so damn partisan to defend the legacy of Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, and George H.W. Bush. With that, I will turn it over to Gabe Mamo from Rhode Island. Grateful for all you being here.
Thank you so much, Sean. Hard to follow that, and I'll do my dose of Republican praise for today because of you. Well, everyone, flooding streets, receding beaches, hotter summers, and more intense storms. You all know it. We all know it. Climate change is here. And I get to be from a place called the Ocean State, so I'm feeling it pretty strongly. You know, in the last 5 years, extreme weather disasters cost Rhode Island up to $500 million. And you put that at scale for a small state, that's a lot of money. $500 million. And Donald Trump and his congressional allies are hell-bent on making it worse. You know, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gabe Mamo, and I represent the 1st Congressional District of Rhode Island, and I have had the opportunity to do so for the last 22 months. But more importantly, today I'm so proud to stand for Rhode Islanders and stand with you and people across this country against the EPA's proposal to rescind the 2009 endangerment finding. You know, for the 101, because I know not everybody's at the same level of info who's tuning in, especially some of my constituents back home. We should be very clear about what this means. This landmark finding aligned American policy with the overwhelming scientific consensus. The greenhouse gases in the atmosphere endanger both the public health and the environment for current and future generations. It meant that your government could work for you and protect you your children and your children's children from the ravages of climate change. That's an essential mission. Putting in place protections to stop polluters from pouring hazardous emissions into our communities. But I think, as you've heard from some of my esteemed colleagues, Trump and congressional Republicans have a really loose relationship with the truth. That's being polite. This is a betrayal. This is turning our backs as a government, one that I am grateful to serve in, on science so that they can keep lining the pockets of the wealthy big oil donors. As the ranking member of the Science Subcommittee on the Environment, I've tried to fight this every step of the way. I led the small but mighty delegation of 4 Rhode Islanders to oppose the repeal of the endangerment finding on behalf of our constituents. I've called on President Trump to reinstate the $1 billion disaster report. He seems to think if we don't measure disasters that cause more than $1 billion in damage, then those disasters aren't happening. I worked to help stop all of this activity at NOAA, with the NOAA Closures Act, to block President Trump from arbitrarily closing NOAA facilities throughout the country. And that's a mission we have to stay committed at. And last week, I worked alongside colleagues in the House to bring together Democrats, Labor, and 16 Republicans to vote down an amendment that would put even more onerous restrictions on clean, green, and cheap offshore wind. So the fact of the matter is, I'm preaching to the choir here in this room, but for those who are tuning in, we know that climate change is real. It's here. It's hurting Rhode Islanders. It's hurting Americans. It's hurting the world. And so I thank all of you here, especially the young ones, for standing up, for your courage and your commitment to fighting for science. But in many ways, one of our errors is you shouldn't be here. We should get this right. We need to communicate to the Trump administration that we have to live in a fact-based world. We cannot afford, for our future, to go down a road where we are denying the science. And so it's going to take all of us to push back. I'm so grateful to be here. And with that, I think I turn it over to Mark Magana. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you all for being here. We're here because the Environmental Protection Agency is proposing to say that climate change doesn't hurt our health and our well-being. They're not just trying to stall climate progress, they're trying to stop it, and they're trying to stop climate action permanently. Now, the science has never been more clear about what's happening, what's causing it, and where this trajectory goes. And the costs have never been higher. Between January and June, we had $15 billion plus climate disasters, $99 billion in costs if we want to talk in dollars. But we also need to talk in terms of the real toll. We've heard incredible leaders in Congress talking about what the consequences in their states are. Lost livelihoods, lost homes, shattered communities. I live in California. I see it very close up. We have to talk about the fact that we're losing lives. We are in an environmental crisis. We trust our government to do what only government can do to protect us. What is the part of government that is meant to protect us from an environmental crisis? The Environmental Protection Agency. Do they have the tools to do it? Yes, they do. Our bedrock air law, the Clean Air Act, gives EPA the authority to clean up pollution that endangers us. And instead of using that authority, they are inviting the Supreme Court to take it away permanently. That is wrong. They are testing, like the Trump administration is doing in so many ways, whether Americans will stand for this. Everyone needs, in this moment, to come at EPA and say, no, we are not having this. They're saying, we are proposing to betray you. What do you think? We have until September 22nd to make our voices heard. No, we think that is wrong. You have a moral obligation to protect us. You have a legal obligation to protect us. Make no mistake, you do not have to be a senator or a member of the House of Representatives to make your voice heard, although we really love to hear from our elected leaders who have seen the threat and who are driving the solutions. But we also need to hear from the people to whom it matters most. Are you going to write a comment? Yes. Yes. Because just putting your name in this record and saying, I see you, or I care, or don't forget about me, my future matters, that is the loudest voice of all. So thank you for being here, for missing a day of school, for being with us. We're talking a lot and make you stand with a sign. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for reminding everyone here what this is all really about. So with that, I want to introduce Moms and Kids Clean Air Force.
Thank you. So, kids want the EPA to preserve the endangerment finding to protect our health and future. Our generation is expected to live through 3 times as many climate disasters as our grandparents, and we're already living through them. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and here's Rowan.
This summer, I couldn't go to soccer camp because of extreme heat. I love camp too, and all kids should feel safe going, but the kids at Camp Mystic weren't safe. That made me so sad. Earlier this summer, our town flooded, and I even saw a car face down in the water, and someone had to be rescued. My swim practices have gotten canceled because of wildfire smoke, and recess gets moved inside when it's too hot outside. It's really scary.
My family lives close to a major highway that pollutes the air we breathe, which is especially dangerous since my brother and I play outside. To every adult listening today who cares about children now and who cares about our lives in the future, we are asking you to please protect the endangerment finding and our future.
There's an old saying in public speaking, never to follow kids or pet tricks. So if anyone has a cute kitten with a gas mask, I could use your help right now. Good morning. My name is Mark Magana. I'm the founding president and CEO of Green Latinos. We are a national network of Latino environmental conservation climate justice advocates and our allies. Let's be clear that rolling back the cleaner cars and clean trucks pollution standards is nothing less than an attack on our families, our kids, our health, and our future. It's the communities who are already stressed in carrying the heaviest burden, the Latino communities, indigenous, black communities, low-income communities, that are going to suffer the most. Our kids are already gasping for air. When I was your age, number one, we didn't have internet. Number two, we would wake up in the morning. I grew up in Los Angeles, just like Senator Padilla and Congressman Levin. We'd wake up in the morning, we'd listen to the weather forecast. Right after the weather forecast was the air quality announcement. And in the early 80s in Los Angeles, in the entire year of let's say 1982, guess how many days where they said the air will be clean today? Take a guess, a number. Oh, good, 0. It was 6. 6 days where we announced that it was clean air. Other than that, it was the quality of air was where it was recommended that the elderly and kids don't go and do strenuous activities. We wouldn't listen to that. We would go out and play. I lived right in between the 605 freeway and the 405 freeway and the 22 freeway. So the pollution that came into our communities was rampant. But we knew that when we played football, when we played soccer, when we played after school, we knew exactly who had to take an asthma inhaler break. And we knew the closest house we had to run to in case that inhaler wasn't working. We knew and we faced what was happening. It just became regular, normal for us. It shouldn't be normal for any child to have to take their asthma inhaler and stop a game to take that so they can breathe when they're gasping for air. This is what we're looking at facing right now. Latino children are 60% more likely to have asthma than white children. Black Americans are nearly 3 times more likely to die from asthma-related cases. Mothers and babies are put to risk by the fine particles spewed out by tailpipes, leading to infertility, premature babies, low birth weight. Rolling back these standards is not just a policy decision, it's a choice that they are making all the worse for our communities. And for what? They're doing it just for the polluting industries. Weakening these rules means every driver will pay more at the pump, more in maintenance, and more in medical bills. Keeping them in place would save Americans over $2 trillion. Cut the cost of owning a new vehicle by $10,000. It's nothing but a handout to polluters. But this is not just about money. It's also about our jobs. Over 400,000 Americans already work in the clean vehicle industry, and they're trying to demolish that right now with the cuts in the EV support, with these rolling back of these standards. This is 500,000 future good-paying jobs in our communities, the very communities that need them the most. Let's talk about energy independence. Weakening these standards would force us to import 14 billion more barrels of oil. That means higher gas prices, greater dependence on foreign markets, while we spend a higher percentage of our income just on fuel. Above all, this is about our survival. This is about not pumping 8 billion more tons of pollution into our air. It's the same as running over 200 coal-fired power plants for over a decade, this rule would do. That means more heat waves, more wildfires, more hurricanes, more floods. And who gets hit first and worst? The people you see here. The communities that are living closest to the highways, that are least protected by the climate disasters, and then slowest to recover when the tragedy does strike. The truth is simple. Rolling back these standards is a betrayal. It means dirtier air, sicker children, higher costs, fewer jobs, and more climate chaos. Keeping these standards is about justice. It's about protecting our families, building opportunity, and leaving our children a future worth fighting for. So thank you for being here. Abby, I'll call you up here, and we'll do some Q&A if anyone has questions.
Thanks, everyone. I think it's a wrap. Thank you all. Yeah? Oh.
You know, if they do roll back the engagement finding, how difficult would it be for a subsequent administration, do you think, assuming the courts go along with that, to reinstate it?
There's so many different ways that this could go, and one of the remarkable things about this proposal is it's a kitchen sink. It's trying every kind of argument to say we don't have to do anything about climate change. So I do expect that we may find ourselves in court. How that fight plays out is a question mark. And it would be wrong of me to opine on what the Supreme Court ultimately does if it goes there. But there is a world in which the Clean Air Act is disqualified as a tool for regulating power plants, cars and trucks, oil and gas fields. All of the places where we have made the most progress to rein in the emissions that are principally driving climate change are in the crosshairs. And so, we'll have to we'll be right on top of this. But this could go in a really bad direction, and ultimately Congress may have to come back and say, no, we meant it. The Clean Air Act is capacious enough to include solutions for climate change, but that may be the position that we find ourselves in. We don't think that's what the law says. We think the law is very clear that climate regulation is not only appropriate but required, and that a next administration should come right back and get going again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.